Bandtalk, and we're going to introduce our guest here. We're on location at the Old Triangle. We have Brendan Doherty here, who I'd like to start by. I was talking to you the other day, and you guys did a post that to me, I guess really, it was a frustration post more than anything else about what had happened. So just thanks for being on the show here.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Tell us, how it's been going since everything started back up, and we'll get on the whole what happened last week in a second. But how have things been going?
They've been all right, actually. To be honest, compared to most winters, it really hasn't been as bad as a lot of the industry here could have been. Reception was great. Heritage Day weekend was around town one of the busier weekends any of us have seen since last summer, really. So the reception of people in Nova Scotia to come out and support local during the winter has really been something of a whole.
Well, in the background you can hear, so we're here on a Wednesday night, and good little crowd here. This place is really, it's a place where people go, but it's a place of music.
There's 7 nights a week.
That's right.
The Old Triangle's maintaining that, so that's it. And again, when we were shut down in May and June, I walked by and I didn't even know for sure how many nights we were doing it. So the Old Triangle has live entertainment a couple of years, 7 nights a week.
7 nights a week, 20 years.
20 years, and that's powerful. That's, we thank you for that so much.
Part of who we are.
Yeah.
Well, so just before we get into, I guess, what happened, give us a little bit of a history on for anybody that, if you're from here, obviously this is a place everybody goes, you know well. I've spent all kinds of time in this place, but just give us a little history on the Old Triangle.
I was started in 2000 by my parents, Brian and Cheryl. Brian was part of Edmonds Doherty, still is to this day, musician all his life, and through everything that he loved about that, him and my mother poured into this place, and they opened it in 2000, and it's grown ever since then. About 5 years ago, we were able to do renovations and take over the entire second floor of the place, and put a staircase in the middle of the dining room. And
it's really nice.
Yeah, so prior to COVID, we were doing weddings, birthday parties, private events, all the things downstairs. So that's about as brief a history as you can get.
And the first shutdown, lo and behold, started on
Patrick's
the
Day.
biggest day that you guys. People were lined up here at 5 in the morning to come in and get breakfast for St. Patty's Day and stay all day. So talk about that, because that was, if you could have a worse time to do it.
Yeah, looking back on it, it's actually kind of funny. Looking back on it, we closed on Patrick's Day with the anticipation of doing Patrick's Day on May 17th.
Right.
I remember
so,
that.
even the leading up to the week of the shutdown, no one really understood what was happening or what was coming. So, even from a stocking level, we were ready for, we had purchased for a normal day. The weekend prior to Patrick's Day, it was made pretty clear that it wasn't going to be normal, but, the food was here, the drink was here, we were ready to go, and that morning was the morning we actually decided to close, and 5 minutes later I was on live television with a TV reporter.
Right.
We talked about this before we went on camera now, Brendan. Typically, the winter months are harsh in the restaurant business in Halifax, especially things here in Halifax. But St. Patrick's Day seems to be the pivotal point where it starts to break open. Folks are getting their income tax check. Spring's right around the corner. It's a good drinking day, and you're an authentic Irish bar.
Yeah, it's kind of the kickoff of spring around here. There's been Patrick's Days where it's been a blizzard out, but the weather's always getting better after Patrick's Day.
So let's talk about your newest decision. So in the midst of COVID and all the other things that are happening now, you made a statement last week.
Yeah. The statement was made, with the restrictions that were announced on Friday. Mostly focused on cultural events and arts events and such, but with bars and restaurants being limited by another hour for service, which we really felt wasn't the right tool to use. Last weekend, there had been 10 cases announced, and there seemed to have been an issue at the shipyards, and in the midst of trying to figure out what to do, the government figured that would have been the best solution, and honestly, we just felt like it was a bit of a rash decision. It really didn't do anything to address the problems that we have been seeing with the cases of community spread, and we felt like we just needed to make that known.
So, one of the things that we've talked to a lot of folks, and the topic of communication or lack of communication seems to be a theme.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously what happened last week, you guys were told at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock on Friday that 8 the next morning everything's going to change. You got to back everything down by an hour. How do you feel the communication's been with you folks?
Can I just ask a question?
From this
Were you told, or you were like everyone else and watched on TV?
Earlier in that day, we had actually been hearing rumors that we were going to be in a lockdown on Friday. That's kind of what I woke up to. And as the day progressed, about a couple hours before the briefing, we found out that it was just going to be a reduction of 1 hour. But I mean, that goes back to the whole fact that there really isn't any. It wasn't any communication happening from really reopening this first time until the present. This week, the communication had really been lacking comparatively to how it had been during 2020.
So you had a Zoom call today with Dr. Strang, and I'm assuming a lot of people in the industry. And you actually said that he was quite receptive to. Was he on the call?
Absolutely, yep. It was hosted by him.
Okay, and so you felt that he was receptive to some of the ideas, and just talk about that a little bit, because again, I didn't watch the press conference, but Dave actually called me. Are you watching this? And I heard what was coming in. I was ticked off. Our band had a show last Saturday night, and we were thinking, how the heck are we going to do this? We got to cut an hour. So what was the Zoom call like today?
It was good, honestly. It was, our approach has never been to argue with government. It doesn't get you anywhere. Fighting with government really doesn't work. There are people they are trying to do the best they can.
Good point.
That being said, people who work in government don't work in the hospitality industry, and they're not aware of what is happening on the ground. And one of the beauties of Nova Scotia, and really why I think we have been so fortunate with COVID cases throughout all this, is the collaboration done between the private sector and the government. Back last June, they were really on top of everything. Questions were answered. There was collaboration in regards to what restrictions are necessary and what makes sense from a business perspective. And much of our COVID policy was really built around it. Even the asymptomatic testing, that was a result of collaboration when we were seeing cases pop up in bars and restaurants back in October.
Right.
So, now we're at a point where 10,000 tests are being done a day almost. These are really good plans that have come from collaboration with the private sector. However, we felt since reopening in January that collaboration has waned a bit, and really to the detriment of everyone, mostly us in this case, with the restrictions of losing an hour. And it's not even so much the loss of the 1 hour, but it's the messaging around that 1 hour. Where it's
circuit breaker mentality.
Yeah, it's the circuit breaker mentality, or we're reducing hours to just send a message that you can't go out as much. That is really counterintuitive to saying in the same breath that bars and restaurants had no leaders in the industry and responding to it.
So why do you think it's weighing? Because one of the things that I talk to people in communication aside, the thing that they keep saying is that you get a bunch of people making decisions and aren't losing paychecks. So they're basically telling us and you, we're musicians, I play the bars, they're telling you that you're going to lose income. They're not losing income, so that's just as frustrating as communication. Why do you think that it's weighing so much from the start to maybe now?
We're just all tired. We've all been doing this for 12 months. We're all really tired. Just prior to you guys getting here, we were talking about closing on Patrick's Day, and it all just came down to everyone is really tired. We've been doing this a year. It is hard. Tough decisions have had to be made. I don't personally put a lot of stock into the people who are still getting paychecks or making these decisions, because at the end of the day, they are people, and we do talk to them. They do care. It's not like they don't. It's just a matter of it is hard to make decisions for an industry that you just aren't aware of how the nuts and bolts of it work, which again comes back to why collaboration is so important in response to what we're dealing with.
What if there was a community? What if there's some kind of association with this, people with boots on the ground, people skin the games who were actually involved? You were actually not necessarily a decision maker, but a policy maker, discuss and make decisions.
That's fairly similar to what is happening. There are structures in place, even within government. It isn't just the Premier and Dr. Strang making decisions. They do have committees that they discuss this with. They do have experts they communicate with. And we do have the systems in place, between Restaurants Canada and the Restaurant Association of Nova Scotia. We do have those avenues where the collaboration can come from. It's just over the winter, it's just the foot was taken off the gas on kind of all levels. And what we felt that people just need to be reminded that we're not done with this yet, which brought us to that post on Friday.
You said earlier that hurry up and wait, that winter.
That's really still where we are. Winter is hard normally. I think there really isn't a way to promote yourself too busy right now. It really is about controlling costs and just ensuring that we're all here come the spring when we are able to celebrate a little more. It gets nicer out. We get our patios going again. And
when you just brought something up, and I'm glad you did, because it was a perspective that I didn't really have. You were saying they are people, and I'm glad you're telling me this, because I just from a musician standpoint, but not really a business owner. the feeling I had that was maybe it wasn't that they weren't people, they just weren't listening. So I'm
Absolutely.
glad that you did say
Absolutely. Yeah, and you know what? And it's hard. You know, there's a million people in the province. You know, there's only 12, maybe 20 people in government who really are making these decisions. So I mean, it's once you boil it down, it's very rare to actually find someone who is trying to punitively hurt the industry in the guise of public health. They really are trying to do the best they can.
So you mentioned the patios being open again. So one of the things that was really neat, we came down here a lot in the summertime, is the street was blocked off, and you guys had the patio of the street. That obviously, that probably helped with everything.
Absolutely.
So, does that look like that might happen again, or is it kind of like we'll see what happens with the numbers?
Yeah, I mean, as far as we know, that's still going to be happening again. The city really did a great job in streamlining their patio process and their ability to actually, you know, take streets like Bedford Row, which is generally a quieter street aside from parking, and you know, opening up those avenues to close them down. So as far as we know, it is still going to happen again, and we're looking forward to it.
This is a bit refreshing. I think Sean's feeling the same way, a little bit of relief, because we were getting pretty angry, to be honest. So we try not to be in the show too left, too right, trying to keep all the rant lines closed.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some things that just irked us, and when you heard the 90 essential services for our friends and musicians and for the business owners, and we were getting phone calls from folks who just didn't know what the rules were.
Yep.
And I said, somehow, somewhere, as long as communication, it's got to be wide open.
And it's hard. And this thing changes all the time, and you know, it's even the reduction in hour. You know, back in November, maybe that was the right call to make. This time it wasn't. You know, there really isn't a one size fits all solution, and you really do need to take each situation at its own with its own variables, and yeah.
I had a quick talk with Brian yesterday. I wanted to call him. He's president of Lions, which is Music Association in Nova Scotia. And he made a really interesting comment about St. Paddy's Day. His comment was, you know, it's a big day here, but this did not want to be the place that if something happened, you guys wanted to be tied to it, and that was part of it.
No, and that's what I was saying before this, actually. You know, St. Patrick's Day isn't something that we plan or we organize. It's something that happens and that we prepare for. You know, whether we, you know, even on our social medias, you won't see mention of Paddy's Day most of the time before Patrick's Day because we don't need to. It's just people enjoy it, and it's become, you know, it's a week of celebrations now between the flag raisings and the parades. It's not even just about going out to the bars for drinks. Like the cultural Irish heritage is a big part of Paddy's Day around here. So, you know, whether we were going to do something or not, if we were open on Paddy's Day, people were going to show up in large numbers.
So as we're talking, I'm looking back here. I know Dave McIsaac. I'm seeing the school. I see Michael Lloyd. I see Kyle. I see the whole. Talk about, because I mean, Brian's a musician. He still is, and you know he was out there slugging it away. And he, you know, this. I'm guessing.
He was supposed to be working all of March. I mean, him and Kevin had, I think, half of their dozen shows booked in the next month, but they're, you know, when they were in New Brunswick or PEI or Cape Breton. Kevin lives in Newfoundland now, so that's off the table completely anyway.
So it's tough for them to get together, but I mean, this really is a bar of music. I mean, that's what you guys are all built around. Obviously, the other stuff is there, but talk about that, because again, I'm looking at all these guys, and it's just like, I forget how many different people, like, here we go right here, like Monday and Sunday, you got, you know, Scott McDonald, you've got Scott up there, you know. So just talk about the amount of people that come through here that, you know, that affects as well.
I mean, it's huge. I mean, our musicians are just as much part of our family as our staff are, you know. We do have some musicians who are almost here more than my staff.
Yeah. Well, you made a funny comment when I was talking. You said, I can't wait for the duos to stop and get a full band in here. That was
I mean, it's a big part of it, you know. It's we like the music. Live music is what makes the triangle, and you know, I'm longing for the day I can have the full 3 or 4 piece bands back in, have people dancing and all that. We are longing for that, and it will come back eventually.
Well, it was funny because Jordan and Kyle played Halloween, and we came out, we were out that night, and it was still, the numbers were reduced, but there was still a really good vibe at that time.
Yeah.
And I even remember Dave and I were downtown the night everything opened back up, and for the fewer numbers, it just seemed like you just saw the energy in the city come back instantly.
People have a need to socialize. We're social creatures, and you know. And that was part of what we brought up with government, is even if you close us, people would still socialize together. You know, if 10 people were going to go out to eat and you closed us down extra, they're just going to go to someone else. Like, you know, people socialize. It's a necessary part. We have to do our best to stay safe currently, but
What's your thoughts on the vaccine? Do you think the vaccine's going here in full force? You think this thing can be over fast, or what are your thoughts?
Who knows? That's I'm not a doctor. You know, I read the newspaper as much as anyone else. Maybe. You know, America's saying they're going to be done in May. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. You know, Britain's at 30% vaccination of their population now. It's as much as I want to look forward to the vaccine, I try not to let it. You know, I try not to think about it very often because there's nothing you can do about it one way or another.
Sure.
We're going to get it when we're going to get it.
That's right.
Nothing we say is going to change that.
One of the things I was just thinking as you were talking, so your staff, I mean, we didn't even talk about your staff. I mean, you know, you guys have done your best to keep everybody working, and that's been very tough. I mean, what do you have in terms of staff on a normal basis, and what are you guys working with right now, and how are you staffing?
Number-wise, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, where we stand right now. Generally, in normal times, we'd have a staff of about 50 to 60 people between the front of house and back of house. I think right now we're probably around 40, 45. But again, you know, probably 10 of those jobs would be kind of seasonal during the summer. There's a lot more work to be done than in the winter, obviously. We're also very fortunate that we've been here so many years. We actually have a lot of staff who kind of will work for us during the summer and then go to school, or you know, we have a couple who are retired and they just go cruising in RVs during the winter.
We were talking about that before we went on air too. Has really lost any staff.
Yeah, no, we're very fortunate. Even most of our staff worked here years before COVID even started. We have very low turnover for this industry here, so we are very fortunate for that. And you know, they're our family as well, so we work. You know, our job is to keep them in their job.
I mean, that's a bit, and I mean, 50 to 60 people. I mean, that's a lot of people that you're employing, and a lot of people that are taking money back in the economy. Is Johnny still back in the kitchen?
Johnny is still back there.
I've known that man for back with the old Misty Moon days when we used to hang out, dating myself a little bit.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, as we wrap, because you're a busy fella, we just wanted to get down here, and obviously we were very impressed with what we saw, and you know, we want to promote you guys any way we can.
Absolutely.
This is going to go up probably tonight or tomorrow. Just tell people what they can do to stop by and pay you a visit, where they're going to find you on social media, all that good stuff.
Whole Triangle HFX across any social media. That's where you're going to find us: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. I don't know, whatever other social medias there are. If we have it, that's our tag. And yeah, we're here 7 days a week, live music every night. Always specials on. You know, keep an eye on our social media. We're always doing specials, fun events when possible. It's yeah.
And I will say, I sent him an email, and you get back to me within 2 hours of the email.
Sometimes.
Well, you know, so that might not be the
that
norm,
is the exception, not the rule.
but I was super impressed with that. So, look, I want to thank you for doing this. I think it was important because, like I say, when that came out last weekend, we had a number of bars that were kind of like, they were going, yeah, and you know what? Some of them didn't really feel like they had a voice, and all of a sudden.
Well, that's what it was. I mean, it wasn't to pick a fight. It wasn't just to complain. We had concerns. We want to address them. We want to work with the government to get through this. Because, like I said, that's what has gotten us through this.
Seriously,
the
I think your
collaboration.
energy has been really refreshing for Shauna, because again, we were getting a little bit riled up, to be honest. We were, and
honestly, I do the same. You go through waves. You're up and down. You're up and down. You're up, you know, I wasn't this composed last Friday either. Trust me.
Well,
It's you have to breathe. You have to take everything in. And you have to keep reminding yourselves, no one's trying to hurt you. They're not trying to punish you.
that's a good idea. And you know, I'm glad I was in my truck going to a meeting, because if I was in front of a computer, I might have done something very stupid. So anyway, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks so much for doing this, Brendan.
Thank you.
And anything we do to help you guys, you know how to get a hold of us now.
Absolutely.
And we'll do it.
we were big fans. The Old Triangle, 20 years in counting.
Let's go. See ya.
Peace out.